New blaster looks fantastic. Old holster not so much. So let's fix that. Got a hide. Or got some leather. Other scrap leather. Bunch of tools. Let's do a thing. The holster itself is fine. Right? There's nothing wrong with it. It's just the leather I used was super, super thin. Not very durable. It was okay. It was alright. I can do better. So let's do better. It's completely screen accurate. Well, it's black. It's supposed to be chestnut. So it's mostly screen accurate. The size and shape is right. It was just done with a sewing machine, so the stitches should be pretty easy to cut. I'm basically just going to do a one-for-one recreation of this holster, just with better leather. Luckily, I have better leather. Speaking of which, like I said, I get all my leather from Tandy. It's not because I have a preference or sponsorship or any of that jazz. It's because I have a Tandy that's close to me. And I can go in and I can, you know, grab the piece of leather and look at it. I'm very tactile when it comes to things like that. I don't like, I mean, if I'm getting a Jedi belt, I guess it's fine. But if you're doing, you know, I kind of want to be able to see what I'm buying, and I want it in my hand. I want to be able to hold and look. Like I said, the shape is fine. I could Sharpie it. Is Sharpie a verb? It should be. Since I'm happy with the design, I'm just tracing the whole thing. There's no reason to get super fancy and do something new. It looked fantastic. It worked well. I just want something a little better. As some of you may be able to hear, my printer's working overtime. Got some interesting stuff coming up. Might not want to miss it, you know, since we're here and all. You know, like and subscribe and all that jazz. So unlike my last holster, excuse me while I get up and cut this, I want this one to be much more refined, a little more professional looking. It's Imperial after all. The Empire does have standards. Alright, that's going to need a little bit of touch up. That's alright. Last thing we're going to need, 3 straps. Which appear to be all about the same size. I want to make them a little thicker than I did here. At least these outside two. It's always the hardest part for me is finding a good chunk of leather that works exactly how I want it to. Because I'm like, this piece here, I could use this for... No, I can't. Sometimes it's okay to just, you know, let a piece go. Now don't quote me on this, but I do believe all of these patterns are available over at imperialofficer.com. That's the detachment website for the 501st for officers. And if you're making an officer, you should, find the people who have already done that and learn from them. I didn't do myself any favors with these super sharp corners, especially since I know I'm going to round at least 2 of them. Speaking of which, let's round 2 of them. I have these half circles. They work fantastic. Just picked them up from AliExpress. There's nothing special about them. So I want them to be 8.5 inches. That's kind of what we're going for. Since I have one, I can just trace it and make the other. I should probably finish cutting this out. So now it's not going to line up perfect because I just kind of scribed the whole thing, which is fine because we'll sand it. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Like I said, I want this to be a little more professional, a little better looking than Wolfwood stuff. Everything's kind of sprawled. Give me a minute. Let me clean up a little bit. I'll be right back. That's a bit better. Like I said, I want this to be a little more refined, a little more finished looking. So we're going to do a couple of things I don't normally do. The first thing we're going to do, we're going to edge bevel. This is the middle snap. So I'm just going to edge bevel the whole thing on both sides. So edge beveling just makes it look a little more, you know, a little cleaner. Then, so now we are going to burnish. And I have, so all I'm going to do is go around the edge with this and compress all the fibers. And it really does make just a subtle difference, but it makes a difference. Use a little bit of 220 to see if I can get this fuzzy off a bit. But it would lay it a little smoother. So I also want to put a line all the way around it. I think it makes it, it's kind of like a faux stitch line. And it just, I think, completes the look just a little bit. So this tool's kind of neat, right? It's got this little cutter with a hole in it. And when you drag it around, it just pulls out that little bit. And it gives it that faux stitch line. I think it just completes it a little bit more. And then I'm going to do the same thing to these two. You don't need to watch that. All three of these are done. I've also edge beveled most of the top of this and then did the little groove. But I need to line it up because I don't want to edge bevel where the two pieces meet. That needs to be, I want it to look more like one solid piece. So I put everything together, then edge bevel. Trying to decide whether I want to glue it or stain it first. I may not even glue because I'm going to stitch it. I think we're going to stain the inside now. And it's supposed to be, it is supposed to be a chestnut brown color. Mine was black, but this time we're going to go with a russet. The black one's not as canon, but again, this is an optional piece of equipment. Unless you're going for level 2 or 3, it doesn't really matter what you do. But I'm not going to be able to get to the inside once I stitch and glue everything together. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to dye everything and see where we're at. I've seen this done with an airbrush. Way nicer finish. I'm not terribly worried about it. Because that's all that's going to be exposed. I just want, you know, I don't want raw leather. So I'm just going to dye the entire inside. Probably give it an hour or so. I'm also going to wait to dye the outside till everything is together. I probably shouldn't. I should probably just dye the whole thing now. I can at least dye the straps. Let's dye the straps so we can see what they're going to look like. Because that should give us a clear indication of what the whole holster is going to look like. It's a bit darker than I was expecting. I said my last one was black, so adding even just a little bit of brown should definitely change things a bit. Plus the color is going to change when it dries anyway. I know I'm not going for a worn look, but a little bit of wear is fine. The gun is very worn, so if there's a little bit of wear on the holster, that's kind of expected. Alright, let's do it. It's not bad. It's not perfect, but not bad. Good enough. We're going to leave this for a couple hours now and let that fully... What are you? It's scratching my leather. The backside doesn't matter, but still. Alright, like I said, we're going to give this a couple hours. Let it do its thing. And we'll be back in a little bit. Cell's had time to do whatever it is going to do. So, we're going to move on to hardware real quick. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do the hardware before or after I put everything together. But I think having everything together is going to be easier. So that's what we're doing. And it's pretty easy. It's just a couple of straps, a couple of snaps. Mine, the original, had snaps here, which has been unbelievably useful. So I'm going to keep doing that. I have a bunch of different snaps here. These snaps are actual tandy snaps, and they seem to be a little longer. These are just ones I got at Menards, and these are ones I've got on the internet. I think we're going to use the internet one because they seem to be a bit longer. I bought these specifically because they were a bit longer. And going through a couple layers of leather, which I do often, just isn't the easiest thing in the world. I still think they're a touch too small though. And these are weird because they've sealed them. Right, this has a Ziploc style. Then they sealed it. How am I supposed to get to these bottom ones? That's how. I have hole punches, right? I have these style. I hate them. They never work right. They're garbage. And then I have the hit it with a hammer style. Also, doesn't work very well, right? I actively choose to use a drill because I honestly believe it works better. So that's what we're going to do. Just going to line everything up, drill the hole all the way through. I didn't skive this any. I didn't slim it down. It's just leather thickness. And it's my first time using these new snaps. We'll see how they work. They may be horrible. Who knows? We will in a minute. Or maybe we'll skive it down just a touch. I will probably have to come back and coat all the edges once everything is said and done. They have setters that make this whole thing so much easier. This is not working for me. Still didn't work. So it's 2 for the internet snaps. I think these just didn't mushroom properly. So we'll try it again. Maybe I gave up too soon. Man, I'm just not having a good moment. Clearly I am doing something wrong. We may edit this entire frickin' section out. Not being able to get 3 snaps to work? It's just snaps. Let's test to see if it's me or if it's the snap. Chances are it's me. So this has been 3 attempts that didn't work. Could easily be operator error. It could be the product itself, or it could just be my technique, which falls under operator error. I'm gonna do a quick experiment. Let's see if I can get one to set at all. So these anvils have different shapes to them, right? They're designed to line everything up. And then they have these little hammers that just aren't always what the people who made the tool want to have happen. I like to leave a lot of mistakes in my videos. I want people to see problems happen, and there are almost always ways around problems from happening. See, that one's set, like well, but I don't know if it'll set through multiple layers of leather. So as annoying as this is, I didn't want to make this any thinner, but I do not believe I'll be able to get these snaps through 2 layers of leather, which is frustrating. Because I went out and I bought extra snaps that were longer just for this purpose, and still doesn't seem to be working. Maybe I have unrealistic expectations. Maybe what I want doesn't exist. But I cannot see how saddle makers don't need extra long snaps. These anvils all have a recess in it, right? And that's been my problem, is because when I hit, I broken out. When I hit the stud here, they have this little recess in it, right? And when I hit it, the whole thing depresses. These don't have the right shape. And I don't know if it's just because, you know, I'm not a, I don't think it's just because I'm not in the industry, I don't understand, or I don't know. It just, you would think there'd be a thing that this just sits on, and it actually sits properly. None of these setters have that. I don't understand why not. It's just really confusing. Feels like it might work. So I just need a thing to hold this up properly. And I swear they make all of this stuff super difficult for home users, just so you'll have to buy the good stuff, you know? And that's frustrating. That seems to have worked. Now for the other one. One down, huh? I'm not saying they don't have the tool that I'm looking for. I'm saying I don't know where or how to get the tool I'm looking for. Drilled a hole. I got the other one to set, by the way. So now we use the dished anvil. See, this fits in perfect, right? That's a bit better. Snaps on. This side of the snap is always the easy part. I'm rarely going through more than one piece of leather for that. Tell me I did not do it, I just think I did. I do believe I put these on backwards. There are days when projects just don't want to work. That no matter what I do, it seems like I'm taking 4 steps backwards and 1 step forward. I could take it personally and I could get upset, which doesn't help anybody, least of all me. Or I can acknowledge, move on to the next step, which is what I'm going to try and do now. That's it for now. I'm done. I'm taking a break. Maybe it's lunchtime. I was having a hard time yesterday, right? Yeah, it was yesterday. Snaps weren't working right. Well, in retrospect, they're fine. They're doing exactly what they're supposed to. Just I was getting frustrated. Things weren't working out real well, and Kim came home and completely distracted me, which is exactly what I needed. Let me show you. Hold on. So we straightened up the garage. Didn't clean it. It's not clean by any stretch of the imagination. I've got stuff everywhere, but I have room to move around. I don't have to shimmy around things to get to where I'm doing, and it makes a huge difference. Sometimes projects get the better of us, and that's okay. Take a step back, change your attitude, change your location. Things do tend to get better. Speaking of getting better, let's get back to what we were doing. Last snap. Just kind of roughly marking. I'm going to use these snaps. They'll match enough that it's not like they're going to be like, oh, that's a horrible, those snaps don't match. It's fine. Since I'm only going through 1 layer of leather each, I'd rather make sure you use the right one for these snaps. If these are a bit proud, because they are, that's fine, because there's going to be a big belt there, right? And that gap is going to look fine. It's not going to be like, oh, that's odd. But if there's a huge gap here, that's just not going to look right. That worked perfect. And that is going to look perfect. We're going to do some gluing now. I'm going to mark some stuff off, put down some contact cement, give it about 10 minutes. We're going to glue everything up. But it's starting to look really good. They have these cool gnarly looking things with a bunch of tines used for scraping, for gluing. I don't have one of those. In the sky just lightly. I'm not worried about it contacting the rough side. The rough side's way easier to glue onto. Got it roughly in shape where I want it. I'm just going to scribe around it. Since I'm not gluing the whole way down, I'm just going to mark it. Having a template I used before, super, super convenient. I don't need to scratch this up like this. I'm just doing it so I have a visual representation of where I'm putting stuff. So I don't, get caught wool gathering and put glue everywhere. Contact cement time. My least favorite part of this entire process. Luckily, I'm in a garage that is very... Well, I'm going to have the door open. It's a garage. It's going to do what garages do when the door's open. Just let a lot of air in. It's a warm day, so it's not that big of a deal. I'm gonna put the snaps away, put down some contact cement, and we'll be right back. Okay, let me put the contact cement down now, and then we'll do the rest. I'm gonna stitch some of this too, so it's not just the contact cement. Although just contact cement is fine. Give this 10 minutes. While I'm waiting, I'm gonna clean everything up. And I'll see you in a couple minutes. That is not too shabby. Clean up a bit, get the glue out of the way, make sure we're good to go, and then we're going to start stitching. Just using a waxed thread. A lot of people who do leather work tend to like this. They like the thread to stand out. I don't like that. I'm going to use a black waxed and just needles. I'll show you what we're about to do. I'm probably going to pull you in closer so you can actually see what we're doing, which is a little different than I normally do for stitching. But exactly what I always do for stitching. So I'm going to stitch this line here. And since I want everything to look a little neater than I normally do, I know you don't see these very often, huh? I'm just going to grab one of my... I'm only doing this for marking. I'm not actually going to stitch with these because they're horrible. I'm going to go a little smaller. The spacing's all the same, so it doesn't really matter. But I want this curve to look a little neater. Alright. I'm going to drill out every one of these holes. So no. Why? Why am I drilling when I have the tool that should work? The tool doesn't work. I don't like it. It never comes out of the leather cleanly. You have to fight with it constantly to hit, and then it's just... Drill's just a drill. Drill's super simple. We're done. It's a better tool for the job. So the nice thing about using the stupid tool is it pushes the leather out of the way. As opposed to this that does remove a little bit of the leather. I suppose it has its advantages, but come on, dude, it's not the 1800s anymore. Use modern technology for this stuff. Although that said, I was at Tandy about a month ago, maybe a little more, and I had to put some stitches around my soldier belt. The guy walks up to a machine, just dunk it, and it just sewed the stitches. I was like, if it wasn't like $2,000, that would be coming home with me. Luckily, I don't do leather work that much that it has to be a big deal. So last time I stitched, I ran out of thread, and thread is inexpensive. That seems about right. Give myself a little extra. I'm not going to saddle stitch this, because saddle stitching still seems a little weird to me. A little excessive. There's certain things I absolutely dislike. One of them is when an industry creates a process that's way more complex than it needs to be, just so normal people can't do it. And that's how I feel about saddle stitching. So instead, I just run stitch all the way to one end and then turn around and come all the way back. Which is in essence the same as saddle stitching, but it makes more sense to me. So I'm just going to go up through one hole, down through the next, up, down, all the until we're done. And since everything's neatly drilled, I'll do that at the end. I wanted to go through the first one a couple of times just to make sure that it was nice and reinforced, but we'll do it at the end. So I'm not bearing down on these and pull and super tight. I'm just tight enough. This is just to reinforce the glue that's in place, because the glue is going to do a way better job than me stitching. Between the two of them, there should be no problems. Alright, I'm going to pull you in so you can see what I mean since I'm getting to the end. What I mean by the reinforcing the last stitch. So I have the final stitch done, right? And instead of just looping and coming back around, I'm going to go through it probably 2, maybe even 3 times. Just to make sure that that one stitch that's going to get more pull than anything else is pretty well done. Then I'm going to work my way all the way back and do the same thing at this end. That's pretty much it. Leather working is riveting or stitching or whatever. Hand stitching. Right there is the part that I'm like, oh, that's unpleasant. I use a machine more times than not. But I can't machine stitch leather this thick. I do a lot of leather workers don't knot. They just kind of, since it's a waxed string, they just burn it and let the wax hold it in place. Feels weird to me. I was originally going to do a square here. I don't know if I'm in the mood for that right now. For a piece that doesn't really do anything. I could leave it, but I'm probably going to wet form it a little bit. Well, I don't know. I kind of do like the smooth look. And the more I use it, the more I wear it, the more it's going to, you know. I like that. Alright. I'm going to take my Dremel, sand this edge so it's nice and smooth, and we'll be right back. Since it's thicker, I have to use a wider burnisher. So excuse the noise. I found that a little bit of water goes a real long way with this stuff. Alright, last step. I know, right? I'm a little excited about the phrase last step too. So we're going to do some touch-up dye. A little bit on the edges, a little bit around the seam. They make this stuff called edge coat. It's designed to seal and just make the edge look nicer. Should probably invest in some at some point in time, just not this point in time. I'm gonna do it. I need to stitch around that. It's just a little too loose for my liking. Gotta fight with it every time. I don't have to fight with my tools. I suppose it's possible that I just don't have the best tool for this, or the best version, because I did get a relatively inexpensive set, but still, I didn't go for the cheapest either. It just seems like never properly comes in or out. Drilling just seems easier for me. Again, it's preference, I'm sure. I just want people to at me in the comments. You should be using, no, you're just doing it the wrong way. Yeah, probably. Check this thing out. That. Right? Looks fantastic. New blaster, new holster. It's going to look amazing, hanging from my hip. Not too bad. It's a pretty easy project. Like I said, most of the stuff can be found online. And if you're doing anything officer related, I recommend you go to the imperialofficer.com. That's the officer detachment of the 501st. We haven't really gone into a conversation about the 501st, have we? Maybe we'll do that next time. Just a quick deep dive into what it's like to be a 501st member and Rebel Legion member. Soon to be a Mando's Merc. Yeah. There's lots of costuming clubs. I have a special place in my heart for the 501st, especially for the officers. I was the merchandise and branding officer for them for a very long time, and I loved that time. It was a great detachment. Those are some great people. But we seem to be at the end of the video. I don't see any more going on. A lot more going on, just not yet. And if you want to see what is going on, you know, at this point, kind of is what it is. So, hope to see you next time.